How to react if you're told, in our team, there are no conflicts. Hello and welcome to Communication Psychology. My name is Gerhard. I'm a psychologist from Hamburg, Germany, specialized in communication psychology in international, intercultural, and multi-language contexts. I'm here in the Republic of Moldova in southeastern Europe. Visiting companies and organizations, often I hear, especially from HR departments, we don't have any major misunderstandings or even conflicts in our organization. This reaction is natural. Of course, we don't like to open up to strangers, especially if that stranger is also a consultant in communication psychology. However, you as an employee may often encounter a situation when you want to raise an issue, a concern, you have questions, and the reaction you get from your supervisor, team leader, the organization as a whole is, well, we don't see any issue with that. It's a non-issue. We don't have time to discuss this, or you are simply exaggerating something. On the side of the organization, it's understandable. We have limited work time. Time is money. And we cannot hear out every employee's concerns. We cannot continue discussing all differences of opinion on any work issue. That's simply not possible. We need to have a cutoff point. Also, in the minds of many HR professionals, a conflict is a sign of open hostility. People shouting, getting into arguments, in some professions even fist fighting. In reality, conflicts are often under the surface. We don't necessarily express our different opinions. And the cause for any kind of conflict may be as simple as time. We have time as a limited resource, and people are different, and there are lots of things we could do to improve our work performance, and there are lots of different ways we could do certain processes, and that means in any given group of people, a team, there are different opinions how to do this. Now, not always do you contribute with those opinions because you don't want to create problems. How often have you been in a team meeting and people have asked you, or you were asked, anybody has questions or issues, and you certainly had, but you thought, well, let's get this over quickly, or it doesn't matter anyway what I say. So you don't say anything, and for that certain day it's fine, but such instances, they accumulate over time, and they manifest then in burnout or disengagement from your job. You are already thinking about the next job. You don't show like corporate citizen behavior, that is, you no longer do extra things for the organization or for your colleagues. You just finish exactly in time. You don't share more information than necessary with colleagues. So there are lots of symptoms for this accumulated conflict. Now, what to do with this? The organization, on the one hand, will answer and say, well, we have asked you. At every team meeting, we ask, is everybody on board here? But both sides know full well that it's not like this. But the team leader, he doesn't want to go too deep. We are afraid of opening a can of worms. If everybody really starts sharing what he or she thinks about the work, the organization, and then we need to invite lots of therapists. And also the employees, they know full well that even if I share everything, there's not much that can be changed in this organization. I'm just inviting lots of problems for myself. So let's keep it like it is. Then, of course, companies have surveys, an anonymous service, employee satisfaction, and so on. However, that's also not perfect, because you yourself, how often do you respond to surveys? As a customer, after the sale, do you respond to every feedback solicitation? How did you like our customer relations department? Less than 50% respond to such solicitation. It's normal. And even if you respond, we know from psychological testing that there are lots of tendencies to not respond truthfully. There are certain biases. So even if it's completely anonymous, probably you give a more positive response than you really would like to give. So what we currently have is probably not perfect, especially if we are in a modern work environment. We have this positivity norm. Everything should be positive. We want to avoid arguments, disagreements, and it's all under the surface. Now, what could you as a team do to take the next step? What I often encounter is organizations that for many years have not invested in communication, psychology, and conflict management, and misunderstandings, and so on. They want to move from 10, 20 years of ignoring the issue, of keeping everything under the surface, to now let's solve everything quickly and let's address the big issues, and let's start immediately opening up everything. And that's not a very productive and ethical approach, because, of course, as an employee, if the norm was not to open up, and the company invites some psychologist to make a training where now we can pull everything out from under the carpet, you immediately fear that, well, now in this training session, if I open up and share my feelings about the organization, about the team, and we start doing some exercises here, well, what will happen after that psychologist leaves? And if you make an analogy to family therapy, a company is quite similar to a family. And if you observe, there are families that have lots and lots of problems that really should go to therapy or to address somebody helping them. And there's abuse, verbal, physical, sexual abuse going on. No. However, probably if you know of similar families, those are the families that are probably least inclined to go to help, to look for help. So their messaging outside of the family is that everything is fine. We are getting along perfectly. And imagine such a family invites or goes to one therapy session with a family psychologist. Of course, the weaker, like lower status members of the family that don't have so much power, like children, maybe the woman, sometimes the man, will immediately feel a bit apprehensive, because now, okay, everybody should be open, but what happens after we are back home? Then maybe somebody, the abuser, for example, will tell everybody, why did you say this during the therapy session? And then it may be even worse. So, on the other hand, the families that don't have so many problems, when they go to therapy, the risk is quite low. And they probably are also more inclined to go. So people who really need it they don't go, and people who actually are getting along well, they want still one more life coach, one more consultant. Now the same here. So the best approach would be, so the worst approach is like you tell your team, we have a psychologist coming and now we need to open up and he will fix our problems. That makes everybody quite defensive. So the best way is to do it from quite afar, from the distance, and make a first step, a very generic communication training, the ABC of communication psychology, something that is non-threatening, where participants are not forced into role plays. They get a bit of theoretical information. They can ask questions. Everybody is left in his or her comfort zone. So it's a stepwise process, so people can hear about this, interact with this, establish some kind of trust with the consultant, and then over time the critical issues will surface. But the important thing is that it needs, like in a therapy, needs to be some kind of ongoing process, so people feel that in case of something happening, there is this consulting or this psychologist that is still involved somehow, and we can talk to him or her. If it's a one-off seminar, the effectiveness of this is probably quite low. Now, the problem from the organization's side is, of course, we would prefer to have somebody coming and addressing directly all the critical issues, because why should we invest in a generic, superficial introductory seminars on communication and do this repeatedly? Why not do it immediately, go to the heart of the issue? So if you don't invite somebody external, but you also could think about a stepwise process, how to introduce such topics from a large distance, non-threatening to everybody, and over the month, during the year, come closer and closer to the real issues. Probably at a certain time when there's enough trust and familiarity with the methods, then the employees themselves already will come to you and say, okay, let's use this for this concrete situation, but not before. I hope this was a bit helpful. I wish you a successful week. If you want me to give a free masterclass online, if it's not Moldova, which I assume it's not, then you can contact me via LinkedIn. Every week I have 1 hour where I make such masterclasses for any kind of organization. See you. Bye-bye.